Hey everybody, hope and pray that you're doing well. Today as we come to our word from the Word. And today that word is memory. Memory. Now I always heard that your hearing was the first to go. It was either that or your memory. I can't remember which. But anyway, I know, corny joke, but that's okay. So moving on today as we're talking about memory, and as Bildad is now replying to Job, and he is replying to him, telling him essentially that, look, the wicked are punished, the wicked disappear. And what he means by that is he's saying, look, he gives a couple of examples here today in Job 18. We're just going to look at one of them. He gives an example of an uprooted tree that, it's uprooted and it's gone to be no more. And it's something kind of like I think of it in this manner, where we might describe, well, you remember where that old tree used to be? And you go there and look, and it would probably be no evidence that that tree was ever there. But maybe because you knew it ahead of time, beforehand, rather, you knew where it used to be. And sometimes he's saying, look, the wicked are like that. He's saying that people know where they used to be, but because they were so wicked, now they have no descendants. And we know that has happened in Scripture as well, where if God declared it, it was so, that there was no descendants, their name was never known. Many people in Scripture that we do not know their name. Some that we do, and they did great things. Some that we don't know their names, and they did horrible things. But the key for all that today is we're talking about memory. I kind of find it ironic what Bildad is saying. And so I want us to look at that today. Job chapter 18, verses 16 through 21. He says, his roots are dried out below, and his branch withers above. The memory of him perishes from the earth, and he has no name among the renowned. He is driven from light into darkness, and chased out of the world. He has neither son nor posterity among his people, nor any remaining in his dwellings. Those in the west are astonished at his day, and those in the east are frightened. Surely such are the dwellings of the wicked, and this is the place of him who does not know God. Now, I think it's something that he's speaking on the wicked, but let's remember that he is still kind of arguing against Job. Part of it is they're arguing, his friends are arguing with him that he just doesn't understand. He doesn't get it. Remember how he told them they were miserable comforters? I'm sure that didn't sit well with them. So I'm sure that they didn't really kind of go the extra mile to speak some encouragement to him. They probably took a little offense and said, well, look, you need to look at how the wicked are. And if he's already saying all these things that, look, the wicked, look, they won't have any dwelling. They won't have any sons, any descendants left behind. And Job's children are all already been lost, have been killed. So it's as if he's insinuating, obviously, that Job is the one he's speaking of. But I kind of find it ironic that in this story, that over and over again, they continue to accuse Job of being wicked, or being that maybe not so much wicked as fact that they think that he's not admitting his own sin, that he's being proud in that, and that he's not willing to admit that God had judged righteously. Now, it's funny that as you go through this, I saw one commentator pointed out that up until this point, really, there's been no talk of God making things fair or making them right in the end, right, when we stand before him. And so some of this, I guess, if you think about it, that theme is kind of really gradually introduced throughout the Old Testament. So it hasn't really gotten to that point where today, or even if we were having this conversation, if you saw this conversation in the New Testament, they would mark it off to say, look, I know that God's going to make it right in the last day. But here, it's as if they hadn't gotten that far. They're focused on the here and now and the circumstance. But I cannot help but think that their memory is so short that they've forgotten what God has forgiven them. That these three companions, that their memory is so short that they forget the sins that they've committed. They forget. This is much like our unforgiving servant that we discussed in Sunday school. If you've been able to join us in Sunday school over the past couple of weeks. And just to think that so much was forgiven, but they were not able to forgive something small. And even here, as he's saying almost that, Job, you're going to be forgotten. I bet if I was to ask you before this, what were the names of the companions of Job, you probably wouldn't remember. But you know the name Job. Even people outside of church know the name Job. Even people who don't, even those who don't believe in Scripture, a lot of them even know the story of Job or know the name of Job from Scripture. I just can't help but think how these so-called friends accused him, saying that no one was going to remember him, and yet everyone remembers Job. And they remember not just for the struggles that he went through, but for me, I remember, the patience of Job. Yes, he struggled, and yes, he got upset and sinned not. And in the end, he was justified. Doesn't mean that every accusation he had against God was correct. It doesn't mean that every attitude he had towards God was correct. But in the end, he is the one who is justified and not his friends. You notice at the very end, and I'll wrap this up for today. It says this is the characteristics of those of him who does not know God. I wonder today, what would be the memory, right? What would be the legacy that you or I are leaving behind? Is it a legacy like that of Job's friends? Or are we leaving behind a legacy like that in the faith of Job? Now, our memory may be short, but what about the memory that we leave behind? I think maybe we ought to pray that we leave much like the name of the Casting Crown song that says, just Jesus, right? It's only Jesus. I only want to give them Jesus. When people look to me, that's all I want them to see is him. What would be your prayer for your memory today? God bless you. I pray you have a great, great day.